I have never felt so good in my life after eating this food.
Welcome back. A lot of you don't realize what a celebrity Cara is. She was into raw food when a lot of the raw food influencers from nowadays were still in their diapers. It's kind of funny because she was in People magazine for raw food when I was still in People magazine for doing pinball machines. That's when
So cool.
Yeah, I did the Jurassic Park pinball machine.
Oh yeah, that's our page. Look, this was when Tiger Woods was a baby. He was on the cover. He was such a baby back
I've still got Don Johnson on the cover of mine here, so that gives you an idea. This is
Oh, that's so funny. And Matthew Perry's a baby here too.
this is the 90s. So yeah, so we both were.
That's coincidental.
We were both kind of famous, but for different reasons. I hadn't even gotten into the health stuff yet. I was still in the
pinball world.
Yeah. Anyway, so so most of this video is going to be about her because you guys don't realize how many celebrities she has met and that came to her restaurant. People like
Steve Jobs, Barbara Streisand, Heath Ledger, Jim Carrey, Cher, Orlando Bloom, Jason Statham, Harrison Ford, Jessica Alba, just to name a few.
But before that happened, you had to go through something in life to get to that point.
Well, basically, my father ran a restaurant in Chicago, Gianotti's, that was so popular, everyone went there, celebrities, even the mob loved to go there. It was quite the place to be. In 1972, they sent him out to Las Vegas to open up a gourmet Italian restaurant.
What was the name of it?
It was called Juliano's in Chateau Vegas.
So your dad's name was Juliano?
Yes, my father's name is Juliano. You know, it's a really cool name. We like to recycle it. His restaurant, not only was it absolutely gourmet delicious, but it was the only restaurant that stayed open past midnight in Las Vegas. That was when all the entertainers, when they would get off from doing their shows, they would all go to his restaurant and party down some more and celebrate, and it was really cool. It's just so cool. My dad had such history. Like, here's a picture of him in a booth. We've got Lola Falana, Dizzy Gillespie, and Sammy Davis Jr., and then my father's on there. And then we got Cheryl Ladd from Charlie's Angels.
That's funny. I had the hots for Cheryl Ladd back in the 70s.
Yeah, who's that? Tony Curtis.
Tony Curtis.
Tony Curtis. A lot of showgirls. Who's this guy?
Jerry Lewis.
Jerry Lewis, Liberace, Kirk Douglas, Don King. Oh, and then we got Big Pussy from The Sopranos. Oh, there's a Joe Pesci. Who's this guy?
But the guy on the right, he was an actor in Buck Rogers.
Oh.
What was his name?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Oh, here it is. Silva. You were what, the coat girl?
Well, that was when I was 15 and 16 in Chicago. In the Gianotti's restaurant, I was coat check. You know, you had to be connected in order to be a coat check girl in that restaurant because you had these mob guys coming in. They just give you $100 bill for nothing, just for a smile. They didn't even have their coats. People would get dressed up and go to a restaurant and they played, I'd always request them to play the Godfather theme, you know, for the piano player. My mother was a pastry chef. So we had this in our blood, you know, from a very early age. And then my mother fed us all this vegetarian food and vegan food when we were little, and she never allowed us to have any sweets in the house. Never. As teenagers, we've always been like into healthy food. I mean, my sister and my brother and I, when my father would take us to Caputo's in Chicago, it's a fruit stand, a vegetable stand. We would get so excited. You know, probably because of the way the food made you feel. So already we were into healthy food, but, you know, there wasn't much to eat. All we were eating was smoothies, nuts, salads, fruit. We were fruitarians for a long time.
So this was in the 80s?
Yeah, that was in the 80s. And then my brother and I moved to San Francisco. And then we wanted to open a restaurant, you know, just a small restaurant because we had the, you know, little stuff going on here. Nobody would invest because they're like, what the fudge is raw food? You know, they're like, maybe alcohol, maybe. But what's this raw food? So our mother gave us $40,000, and with $40,000 in San Francisco to open a restaurant is just pretty unheard of. But then we didn't need any heat or the hoods, you know, which are cost a fortune, for other restaurants.
Right, because you weren't cooking.
We weren't
You weren't
cooking.
baking. You weren't doing any of that.
And then it was so funny because after we opened, the health department had come in and he's like, wait a minute, where are your hoods? He'd never seen a restaurant like this. It was really funny, we're like, oh, no, you don't cook here. You don't cook. It was just so funny how people back then were like, wait, what? People started coming into the restaurant and they're like, what kind of food is this? And we're like, raw food. And this one lady screamed, raw food? People thought, oh my God, this is so crazy. They don't cook pasta. They just serve it hard with tomato. That's, because nobody really knew what, it was just tiny little 0.00003% of the population knew what raw food was in this country. It was pretty much unheard of back in the 90s. So we're a little restaurant, we're struggling. The smarter people that really caught on to this were the hippies in San Francisco. They were our first, they were the ones that appreciated it, that knew what it was. And then after that, the celebrities started coming. And I think Woody was our first.
Woody Harrelson?
Woody Harrelson.
So who else came in?
Okay, it's really funny because when we would be interviewed in the past, they would ask, well, what celebrities would come to your restaurant? And it was like a joke. I would be rattling off all these people. It was like, are you kidding? But it's true. Joaquin Phoenix, Anthony Hopkins, Selma Hayek, Ron Howard, Giselle Bündchen, who said, I quote, my favorite restaurant in the world. That was long before she married Tom Brady, when she was still a Victoria's Secret model. Miranda Kerr, another Victoria's Secret model, and her husband, Orlando Bloom, Cher, Kate Upton, Teresa Palmer, Marla Trump, Jason Statham, Kate Hudson, Alec Baldwin, the Beastie Boys, Red Hot Chili Pepper, Grateful Dead, Alanis Morissette, PETA, Greenpeace, and the Rainforest Action, and Felipe from Three's Company, and Tom Hormel. I thought it was really funny. Tom Hormel had come in with his wife.
Who's Tom Hormel?
Tom Hormel is the owner of Spam.
Hormel Ham?
Hormel Foods, yes.
Wow.
Is that crazy?
So wait, he came in your restaurant with his wife?
With his wife.
What happened?
They loved the food, and they hired us out for a catering gig in their amazing mansion they have in the middle of like a forest. It was the most beautiful place I've ever seen, with the little river running through the house. It was just amazing. And we catered them, and the wife, she was just so into the food. She was so inspired.
The Hormels from Hormel Ham had you cater raw vegan food
Isn't that true?
at their event, at their house.
Yes.
What did they eat? Like, what did they personally eat?
They had two different caterers there. They had us, we were raw food, and then they had fancy cooked food. And our raw food, our food emptied out first.
Yeah.
She was first introduced to raw food by us. And, she has all the money in the world. So she, Marissa, she started playing around and promoting it. And she made this amazing coffee table book, Bodies on Raw. And
That's a huge book.
it is. It's huge. It's like 50 pounds. Anyway, it's an amazing book. It has naked bodies on raw. And then some people talk. It says, I saw my dad slim down. He looked younger. So I said, Dad, what did you do? He said, I went on a detox program.
So these are the bodies of people that were eating and living off of raw food.
David Wolf is in it. Yeah, all the regular raw fooders. Well, pioneers, because this one is a little older.
He was naked in that show, remember that reality show where people had to live in a room together? And he was walking around naked all the time.
Well, he's not naked in this. He's just topless in this one. But we have...
He's playing drums naked here.
Oh.
Anyway.
But, I think this is Shazzy. My brother's in this. I'm not. She had to do it.
So let me get this straight. So the wife of the guy that owns Hormel Ham,
Marissa
made a
Hormel.
giant coffee table book of what people's bodies look like when they eat raw food.
Bodies on Raw.
Raw vegan food.
And this book, I mean, it's serious.
That's big money investment there. And he was okay with that?
Oh, come on. You should see their house. John Robbins, author of Diet for a New America, says Bodies on Raw is a celebration of the healing that can happen when people make healthy food choices. But more than that, it's a celebration of beauty and a celebration of life itself.
So you had what, in 2 restaurants in San Francisco and then 1 in LA?
2 restaurants in San Francisco, 2 in LA, one in West Hollywood, and then 1 in Santa Monica. And then I opened mine in Pleasant Hill. You know, I would make my father sandwiches, you know, because he'd go to the Italian club in the afternoon, and I'd make him a sandwich, and he'd always say, "You should open a restaurant." And I'd love that, you know, and I was little, I can't believe it. I always thought about opening a restaurant, and I opened a restaurant.
That's funny because my dad used to tell me all the time when I would lecture him about eating right. He says, "You should become a motivational speaker."
Is that crazy?
So we both
did what our fathers told us to do. And so it was really cool. So, you know, we're this tiny little restaurant with this unheard of food across the street from Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. And, you know, just a tiny little, you know, portion of the population knew about us. But word started getting out. And then one day I answered the phone and I'm like, "Raw Restaurant." And they said, on the other end, "This is People Magazine. We'd like to do an article on you." And I go, "Please hold." Boop. Ah, People Magazine. So People Magazine came, and then after People Magazine came,
the phone rings again.
That was it. It spread all over the world. And it got to the point where, like 3 months later, I'm like, "Raw Restaurant," and they're like, "Hello, this is the New York Times. We'd like to do an article on you." And I'm like, "Oh, great. Why don't you come to the restaurant Monday through Wednesday between the hours of 3 and 5, and we can accommodate you." And they're like, "Huh?" Those were the times when they could come between 3 and 5 when we were least busy because we had a restaurant to run. This restaurant was open 7 days a week, 16-hour days.
People were flying in.
People flew in from different parts of the country.
Elvis was known for getting in his plane to fly across the country to get a special hamburger somewhere.
Yeah, so, you know, and so we started with the pizzas and the salads. But once, you know, we have all this produce and all this just amazing selection of fruits and vegetables in a deli case in front of us, I mean, you just start coming up with more recipes. You know, a lot of chefs that were, you know, into healthy food started coming to our restaurant to learn. They're like, "Oh my goodness, this is great." And, you know, we gave them cooking lessons and they learned all about the raw food. And then those little angels go off and open up their own raw food restaurant, which would be Pure Food and Wine in New York. Sarma was a regular in the beginning.
So what was it like when Steve Jobs came by?
I didn't talk to him, you know, he was just really quiet. You know, I didn't really know who he was. I wasn't in the computers back then. You got to understand, computers, I don't think were even there. You know, my brother...
That's true, yeah.
My brother knew Steve Jobs because my brother was always into computers and, you know, he knew of Steve Jobs. You know, I didn't know. I was like, Steve Jobs? I don't know who Steve Jobs is.
Any interesting stories by any of these celebrities?
Well, Leonardo DiCaprio, who's actually a pretty good artist, he drew a picture of my brother. And Woody, I brought a friend to the restaurant once, and Woody had his entourage there at a table, and we had closed down, but we, you know, of course, we let Woody and his entourage stay, and I sat my friend down at their table. I'm like, "Hey, you want to sit at Woody's table?" And he had told me later, he goes, it's insane. They're talking anti-drug as they're passing a joint around. Now,
Heath Ledger?
Heath Ledger was an angel. It's such a nice guy. You know, it's like these celebrities that come in and you know, some of them, they could be, you think they're stuck up or something, but they are so nice. The guy, I can't believe it's not butter.
Fabio
would come in. He was so nice. And every time he would bring a date, this woman, and she acted so stuck up and conceited. I was like, she acts like she's the, you know, Fabio.
She's the "I'm with Fabio" attitude.
That's exactly what it was like. But Fabio was just so kind, you know, and he was really cool. And Heath Ledger was just such a doll. He came with his wife, Michelle Williams.
Was Harrison Ford grumpy?
No, you know, they were basically, you know, nice. And it's, you know, my father, it's amazing that my father had access to cameras in the 70s. And we had all this, you know, now technology in the 90s and 2000s, and we weren't using it. But you know what? I don't know. We weren't like, can we take a picture with you? We didn't want to bother
Nobody had
them.
cell phones back then.
That's true. Nobody really did have cell phones. But then even if we had a camera, we didn't want to bother them.
Yeah.
This was in L.A. You know, my dad's restaurants were in Chicago, but L.A. where the paparazzi are, you know, we didn't want, you know.
They want to be left alone.
They wanted to be left.
They might not come back.
They might not come back. We wanted to leave them alone. We respected them. That's why they liked us as well. But yeah, and you know, here's the New York Times article.
So they did come.
Oh yeah, they came. Yeah, they came.
What was that quote your San Francisco guy wrote?
Oh yeah, in a city known for innovative food, raw foods beats them all. Something like that. That was the first one. Michael Bauer. We were in the San Francisco Chronicle. He did a review of us, and it was so funny because I had answered the phone when he called, and I go, "Raw restaurant," and he goes, "Hello, this is Michael Bauer. We're doing a restaurant review of your restaurant." And I said, "When are you coming?" And he said, "I already came." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" You know, so we didn't even know that he had come, and he gave us such a good review. So then Demi Moore came because she was about to do Charlie's Angels, Full Throttle, you know, LA, and she's like, "Oh my God, I need to lose some weight. I'm going to be in a bikini for in Full Throttle." And she lost a lot of weight and she looked great. And how great did she look in Charlie's Angels? Everybody was like, "Look at Demi Moore. She's 40 years old and she's in a two-piece bikini." How old was she here? I don't know. But raw food guru Juliano Brotman and Carol, who turned Demi Moore on to this innovative way of preparing food, insists raw food is real food. And then, you know, you go on to read it, but...
All right, so people are going to ask, how come you're not running a restaurant anymore?
Because I got up at 6 a.m., worked till midnight. One day, I remember I was in my late 20s, and I was running to the fruit market to get something in San Francisco, and I stopped, and I'm like, oh my God, I saw something I hadn't seen in over a year.
Sunlight?
The sun. The sun was like out there, and I just couldn't believe I hadn't been outside for so long because this
is what people don't understand. A real gourmet restaurant person is up at 6 a.m. at the food markets where the exotic foods come in from all over the world. They're picking through stuff,
Yep.
right? They're working before other people are even awake, and they're the last one to close up at night.
Yep. During those years, I would tell myself and people, I'd say, there is no way I'd be able to do this if this was any other type of cuisine but raw food. One time, my brother, between 3 and 5, were slow, and he cooked real pasta with this lovely coconut sauce on a hot plate we had in the restaurant. So then he serves us, the waitresses, me, him. Oh, it was so delicious. We gobbled it up, and guess what?
Y'all got tired.
I wanted to go to bed. I'm like, wait a minute, I have my second shift is coming.
Yeah.
We were so tired. We were so clean and so pure. And then we're throwing this cooked crap onto our body, and our body went into shock, basically.
So a lot of people are going to probably say, oh, it's a shame. I wish we could come to your restaurant.
Right.
But we got something better.
Yes. You know, we wrote an amazing cookbook. And not to mention, you know, I show people how to prepare this food for themselves. You know, teach a man how to fish, he'll eat for life. So on our YouTube channel, you have these recipes in here, and on our YouTube channel, you have me like showing how to put it together. And
her and I made this cookbook together. I, at this point, when we met, had already been making up my own raw food stuff for 5 years or something like that. So this cookbook is actually a culmination of her best stuff and my best stuff.
I wasn't going to take away from my brother's, because my brother has a cookbook, and I couldn't put the same recipes in his cookbook.
So I said, we got to make this simple. We have to make this like 4 ingredients, and it got to be easy to make so a normal person can do this so easy and quick. And that's the basis of this cookbook, is quick, easy, fast, very few ingredients.
Right.
And
delicious.
And so this is like version 2.0 or actually version 5.0 or 10.0 above what the early stuff was. You can get this at healthycookbook.com. So instead of having to go to a restaurant, pay lots of money, this shows you how to make this at home yourself for very little money and continue to make it for the rest rest of your life. And you don't have to go out, you don't have to dress up, but you'll be healthier.
You know, speaking of healthy, you know, when we were fruitarian for about a year, you know, before we knew exactly the raw food, and then we started doing the salads, you know, and you know what, we felt so much better off eating salads, so we kind of quit the fruit.
Well, nothing wrong with fruit.
No, nothing wrong with fruit.
As long as you can have some of it be fruit, but not all of it be fruit.
Our diet was like 80% fruit.
Yeah. So I've always said in my Heal Yourself, if you're making a smoothie, half greens, half fruit. Most people do nothing but fruit. You know, they're just sugar addicts. So you need the benefits of the greens. Each type of food has its own type of benefits to give you. So you figure this out on your own.
Yeah, and I'm just so happy, you know, just really happy that this unusual cuisine, you know, has just catapulted into like, I think there's like over 400 raw food restaurants now in the world.
Most of them are not in this country. Most of them, actually, the biggest raw food community was in Germany 10 years ago, and they flew me out there a lot because I'm German, so I gave a lot of talks there. But I think now the biggest raw food community is in Bali, Thailand, Pacific Islands. It's really catching on there. It's outside the United States, or North America in general. I think it's all about instant gratification, comfort food. They're used to the warmth. They want the cheese and the bread, and they have the health problems as a result. People think raw food is boring. We make stuff taste just like the real thing. It looks and tastes just like it. I don't think it would have taken off like it would if it wasn't done right. All these celebrities would never have. Of course, it wouldn't have. They would have gone. It was just another boring hippie place with stuff that tastes like sawdust. If only people could taste what your stuff. Yeah. You know, it's worth the effort to actually go and pick the actual ingredients, because a lot of times I get people say, "I made your recipe, but instead of coconut, I used parsnips, or instead of apples, I used bananas." It cannot possibly taste the same when you start substituting something like that for so many ingredients. If you can make it exactly like this, in the proportions that they are, you will get so hooked on it and you'll be amazed at how good healthy, non-cooked food can taste.
There are some amazing raw food restaurants, now mind you, the one in Denver was mind-blowing. That was really good.
When I went to the Raw in Santa Monica. This was before I knew her. It was late, and I ordered the ravioli that she just talked about. I got to tell you, it was the most mouth-watering, amazing ravioli I ever had. And I said, I want 3 more orders. They said, that's the last one. So I was so bummed. So I made sure the next morning I was going to be the first one in the restaurant. And because I was leaving, I had to go back to Vegas. And you don't just make this stuff like in a matter of 10 minutes. Like, so the next morning they still hadn't made it. I mean, it takes a while to make this stuff. But anyway, long story short, I didn't know that the person that made this amazing
that you fell in love with so much. You loved it so much.
It's her. She was the one that made it. And we wouldn't meet for another year or 2? We were getting closer and closer together. And then one day, I go into Home Depot and there she is. It was just, it's weird how life just, these two have to meet. They have to get together, and the rest is history. My background in Hollywood and social media and all that, really, I said, I got to put you out there. You have to show these people how to make this food yourself.
You know, I'm in a few articles, but I was always, you know, in the you know, behind the scenes, making food. You know, my brother, you know, he was just like, you know, whatever.
But she's the real ham. She's the actress, the one that should be in front of the camera. I'm working with a lot of actresses and celebrities, and she's a natural. I mean, she didn't even go to acting school, and she's, isn't she?
I always wanted to, you know, act, and you told me, you go.
She's a model, she's an actress, she's a chef.
Well, because of you. You told me, you said, well, I'll make you an actor, you know. So we started doing those, you know, acting little things, you know, like the princess video and all that. Well, anyways, you know, a few people, you know, had asked, and you know, throughout the years, how'd you get into this? So
she helped start the whole raw food thing many years ago. I thought it was a really interesting story, so I had to get her to do a little show and tell. She goes, "Oh, but I don't want to brag. I don't want to like name names and do name dropping." I said, "No, this is the one video where you need to, because people need to know how all these celebrities that came to, there's a reason they all came here, because the food tastes so good and it made them feel good. And these people, they're all about looking good and being fit and every ounce of fat counts, and their faces have to look young. So there's a reason all these people came.
And then the doctors did us. The doctor had come to our restaurant in San Francisco with his cameras, and we made him food, and Jillian Michaels was on that segment too. They always have to have like a devil's advocate. Jillian was so angry.
She has a problem with something. I don't know.
She screamed on the set, "Raw food isn't healthy!" And I didn't see her again.
The doctor was on your side.
Yes. Well, she didn't even taste the food. She didn't even know anything about it. He knew what it was. He felt amazing afterward, and he came back and reported on it.
I have never felt so good in my life after eating this food.
Well,
and you know what?
eat your
And it
vegetables.
lasted, and that feeling lasted the entire night. Even into the morning. The next morning, I wasn't hungry until about mid-morning, and I started to get the craving. You know what I started craving? It wasn't eggs or donuts or all the usual stuff. It was more of this.
So we're like, we could eat this food every day? And that's exactly
So you really opened the restaurant for yourself.
it was, we just wanted to share it with the world too, but that sure was a driving force. Maybe we had a propensity for, wanting to eat this food every day. Now, I know people are going to say, oh, there was a raw food restaurant here back in 1960 or 19... Well, there was a reason why you never heard about it, because the food was,
The New York Times don't fly across the country for a hippie thing.
Yeah, we were the first gourmet, all raw food
Something that tastes like real food.
Yes, we were elaborate. We wanted to impress, we wanted to show off this food. And, that's why our restaurant was the restaurant that finally made raw food explode onto the scene.
All right, well, that was just we tried to cram a whole lifetime into a little bit as much as possible.
35 years.
Yeah, into 35 minutes. So we hope you found this entertaining and inspirational. And really, I guess the bottom line here is if all these celebrities flock to this place, then you should try it if you haven't. It is there's a reason they came to this. Get the cookbook at healthycookbook.com or just look at our free videos on YouTube. There's a recipe playlist. Just go down them and try to make it just like the video. Don't try to start substituting stuff. People are always saying, I don't have a food processor. Can I just run it through a blender? It's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
Do what you can to make it similar. Otherwise, you're going to make it different and then go, I don't know what the big deal is.
Yeah, can I use the oven on low to compensate for the dehydrator? But you know what? Raw foods has been around for decades now. Walmart sells
dehydrators for $30.
For $30. There's no excuse.
And if you say, well, that's too much, what does a heart attack cost? What does it cost to be on dialysis or to have a kidney taken out? A few dollars for a blender or a food processor or a dehydrator.
Yeah, you think eating healthy is expensive. Imagine the doctor bills.
Yeah, right. Anyway, so we hope we inspired you. We hope you got something out of it. And I wanted you to realize what a celebrity we have amongst us here.
Oh, stop. I'm very not show-offy. I don't like that. But he asked me just to do this one time.
If she comes off as show-offy, it's my fault, so I apologize for that. But I think it's worth it. I think she is worth showing off. Don't you think so? I think so. All right, well, we hope you got something out of it. And we'll keep inspiring you as much as possible. We'll see you in the next video.
Bye-bye.